You're watching 13 WMAZ Law Call, sponsored by Macon Law Firm, Reynolds, Horn, and Servant. Your rights, your calls, live. This is 13 WMAZ Law Call.
Well, hello and welcome to Law Call. I'm Morgan Dukes. And you know what? It's just about that time. The weather is heating up and everybody wants to get outdoors. So summer vacation is just around the corner. People are wanting to get in the cars and go somewhere. I'm not mad at you. But what if your insurance is just not right? Or what happens if you have an accident? Now, you want to have all your insurance questions or at least some insurance knowledge up front, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about understanding insurance companies. And with me from the law firm of Reynolds, Horn, and Servant is Mr. Wendell Horn. How you doing, Wendell?
Morgan, glad to be here tonight. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're planning a vacation.
I'm trying my best. And you know what? The best way for me to travel these days is by automobile. So this is going to be a very enlightful show for me. I'm ready to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think there are a lot of people out there feel the same way as you. There will be a lot more road miles put on vehicles in the next few months than we've had in the last year or two.
Yes, indeed.
Sure. But we have with us tonight my law partner, Kate Reynolds, who is my other law partner, Carl's daughter. And Kate is just coming back from maternity leave. So we're glad to get her back in the fold.
Well, hi, Kate. Kate Kerbo. I know he calls you by your maiden name, but
you're
that's
right.
okay.
I forget that. I don't even consider Kerbo as part of the equation anymore.
Well, Wendell called me Carl's daughter. What he failed to say is that I'm also his cousin, so I think I'll always be Kate Reynolds to him.
Okay,
that's
all right.
Right. And
Well, I tell you
last
what.
time we were on the show together, we kind of called your husband out on something, didn't we?
Yeah, what was it? Mom brain. I'm having trouble remembering now.
I don't remember what it was, but we'll find something to call him out on.
Maybe we'll get him on the next show.
We'll start by saying, Morgan, he represents the other side of cases.
Oh, okay.
So there's always something to call him out on.
Yeah, he doesn't have his heart right.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, this is what happens when it becomes a family thing. But sometimes this happens in insurance companies too. You might have family members or people that going against each other's with insurance matters. So that's why tonight you guys are going to help us sort all of this out. We have a bank of email questions that have already been sent in to us. And our first one is from Courtney. So let's get into Courtney's question. And it simply says, I tried reading my car insurance policy, but I don't really understand it. What are the most important details I need to educate myself about? Now, I think Courtney just represents thousands of people with that question. She doesn't always understand what she signed up for.
Most people don't even read the policies. At least she's reading it and knows she needs questions answered. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, there are so many different types of insurance that you can get. But if someone were to ask me point blank, what's the most important thing I should have? I would say the most important thing you should have is uninsured motorist coverage. Now, it kind of boils down to a question of what are your assets when you're looking at liability and what do you need to protect? But the biggest thing to protect yourself when you're out there driving with all of those other drivers on the road is uninsured motorist coverage. So you want to make sure that you have that on your policy, and you want to make sure that when you get it, you stress to the insurance company that it is add-on uninsured motorist coverage, because in Georgia, at least, there are two different kinds of uninsured motorist coverage. One kind is traditional uninsured motorist coverage, or it's called difference in limits. And one kind is add-on uninsured motorist coverage. And the difference in limits is literally the difference in limits between if you get hit between the liability insurance coverage and whatever UM you have. So if you have 25 UM and you get hit by somebody with 25 liability, they cancel each other out and you have 0 UM. You're basically paying for nothing. So, And the insurance company, their job is to hide the ball from you, and they really push that traditional UM, and there's not really any price difference. I mean, in some cases, maybe it's $4 to make sure you get that add-on UM.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be sure I check mine, and look for the add-on. And if it's not there, I'll be calling my agent. That's for sure. Our next question.
Morgan,
Yes.
that's a good point. I mean, everybody watching the show ought to go right now and look at their policy. Look at that declaration page. It's going to set forth what their coverages are, as well as the cost of each coverage. And as Kate said, the difference between add-on uninsured motorists and traditional is negligible. I mean, it's a few dollars every 6 months, and it's sort of like, why not have the other for just a few dollars? And we see people coming in all the time after they've had a wreck, and they need that coverage, and they find out they don't have it. And it's really up to their agent to be selling them the right coverage for their needs. And it's a shame.
Oh, wow. Well, that's why you guys are here answering these questions tonight. Understanding your automobile insurance is what we're talking about. And our next question comes to us from Tamika. Tamika wants to know, how long after a wreck should I expect to wait for some kind of an offer from the other driver's insurance company? Would telling them that I'm talking to a lawyer speed things up? That's always an interesting perspective. Should I kind of threaten them with that or no?
The first thing that I would ask Tamikas, are we talking about property damage or bodily injury? Because the answer is two different things. If it's bodily injury, you should expect some kind of contact from the adverse insurance company within a week to 10 days. And if you haven't heard from them, you need to be talking to your own insurance carrier about going under your collision coverage. But a week to 10 days is about average. Sometimes less, but here again, an insurance company is not going to even know about the claim unless their insured puts them on notice first. So that's what you need to look at. As far as a bodily injury claim, it may be 6 months before you settle it. It may be a year. It may be years down the road. A lot of that is determined by what kind of injury you have, how long you're treating, whether the treatment's going is ongoing, or whether you have to file a lawsuit. So there are many factors that go into that. There's not a cookie cutter answer, where one answer fits all. It's each individual case is going to have a different time frame.
And that's what
add something to that.
Kate, any thoughts?
And once you tell them that you are talking to a lawyer or thinking about talking to a lawyer, they're going to want to start talking to your lawyer. Well, by law, they have to start talking to your lawyer. So there's not really anything that's going to necessarily speed it up or slow it down. Nobody's ever accused the wheels of justice of turning quickly. They turn slow either way. But once you say the word lawyer, they have to talk to your lawyer.
So it's not a wise idea to start threatening or tossing that word around until it's actually time.
No, I mean, I wouldn't use it as a threat, but I would say I would talk to a lawyer either way before I use the term lawyer.
All right. Well, we've got two good ones for you tonight. Wendell Horn, Kate Kerbo, both from Reynolds, Horn, and Savant. And we're going to be back in just a minute with more questions about understanding the insurance company. I'm Morgan Dukes, and you're watching LawCall.
You're watching Law Call on 13 WMAZ with personal injury attorney Carl Reynolds, who has recovered more than $500 million for his clients, dedicated to helping injured Georgians for more than 50 years, plus support from his Macon law firm of Reynolds, Horn, and Servant, including attorney Wendell Horn, focused on protecting the rights of car and truck wreck victims across the state, and attorney B.J. Servant, aggressively representing those injured by medical malpractice, hosted by award-winning broadcaster Morgan Dukes, featuring guests from across Middle Georgia. Your rights, your calls, live. This is Law Call on 13 WMAZ.
And welcome back to Law Call. I'm Morgan Dukes. Tonight, our hot topic is understanding your insurance company, because it's about that time when we're all ready to get in our cars and drive somewhere, and we don't want to have an accident. But should you need to understand your insurance policy, and you need to know how insurance companies work. So with us tonight, Wendell Horn and Kate Kerbo from Reynolds, Horn, and Savant. And speaking of attorneys, let's just start right here. A lot of times we see a lot of slick advertising on television about, call people or call this attorney, and you memorize a little jingle in your mind. And sometimes you do reach and call that person. But it's my understanding if you call some of these attorneys that you hear about on television, you won't necessarily get to talk to an attorney, but perhaps even a caseworker. I mean, can you shine some light on that?
That's absolutely correct. It blows my mind that people would fall into that. Anytime someone comes to our office or a reputable lawyer's office, they should sit down with an attorney across the table, and there's going to be no charge for that. There's going to be a free consultation. But instead, people opt to go with a caseworker that's a non-lawyer to be advised on things that really are important and are legal issues that got to be sort of fretted out as the case proceeds. So, there's no charge to talk to a lawyer. Most lawyers that do the kind of work we do, and there are many reputable law firms in Macon that do personal injury plaintiff work, they'll talk to you for free of charge. And only if they take the case will they charge, and that will be at the end of the case because it's handled on a contingency fee basis. So why wouldn't you avail yourself of good legal advice? One of the other things is, how do you determine what you should get on your automobile? There are some critical code sections that give you a little bit of leverage when you're negotiating with an insurance company on the value of your totaled out vehicle. So those are things that will be conveyed to you on initial consultation that's free of charge.
All right. Well, always call an attorney. And if you can, and certainly I recommend you guys give them a call at Reynolds, Horn, and Savant and talk to an attorney. Free consultation, won't cost you anything. Our next question comes from Cole. Cole has an interesting question that I'm sure you can't wait to hear. It says, I don't really remember what I said to anybody else at the scene after my wreck, but now I'm supposed to call the adjuster back and I'm worried about it. What should I have said? And then there's an LOL there, because I think a lot of times, in the midst of an accident or after an accident, people get afraid and they just start talking, or they may say the wrong thing and they don't remember what they said. So how should you handle that in an emergency situation?
There's not really a wrong thing to say. You certainly, if you're hurt, there's going to be the police officer will take statements from both drivers. So if you can't remember what was said, it's going to be in the police report. And if you're hurt, you want to make sure you tell the police officer that you were hurt and that you were feeling pain, and hopefully that will go in the report. And that's something that your lawyer will obtain and use when they communicate with the insurance company for you. And in terms of speaking to the adjuster, if you're thinking about getting a lawyer, if you've been hurt, I would certainly recommend get a lawyer. Don't talk to an adjuster. Tell them that you're represented and they can talk to your lawyer, because you can certainly say some things that are detrimental to your case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's important to remember, without a doubt. That's so important to remember. Okay. Our next question comes from Kay. I think we may have answered it earlier, but just in case someone is just joining us, they need to know this. Is uninsured motorist coverage something that comes automatically in my insurance policy, or do I need to specifically ask for it? So, Wendell, how would you answer that for someone who might be just joining us?
That's an interesting question, because under Georgia law, you automatically have the same amount of uninsured motorist coverage that you have liability. So if your liability is a 25 policy, you automatically are going to get 25,000 uninsured motorist add-on coverage, unless, and this is the caveat, unless you sign that away. And the problem is, when people go in to buy insurance, they typically sign any form that's put in front of them, not knowing that they're signing away the uninsured motorist rights. So the answer is, it is automatic, but there's going to be a form in front of you that's going to waive it. So you need to know what you're signing. If your policy is 100,000 in liability, you automatically get 100,000 in uninsured motorist coverage. That's the add-on coverage that Kate talked about a minute ago, which is the type you need. unless you sign it away. And you can sign a form away that says, I'm rejecting the 100,000 uninsured motorists, and I'm taking either none or 50 or 25. You can then at that point select an amount that's less than the uninsured, than the liability coverage you have, but you can never take more than the liability coverage that you have. So, that's what you got to be careful about.
Okay. Well, thank you for educating us on that, because I didn't know that one either. Okay, moving right along in understanding our automobile insurance. Our next question is an interesting one from Aaron. And Aaron wants to know, can the insurance company refuse to pay your ER bill if you weren't wearing a seatbelt at the time of the accident? Well, is that possible in any case? I mean, what if you're also eating at the time of the accident or texting? Can they just refuse flat out not to pay your bill?
The short and simple, I mean, you want to have a lawyer certainly take a look at what your policy is, but that it's contractual. The short answer is no, they're obligated to pay. It's the contractual duty. But, when you get into things like going to trial, if you have to file a lawsuit on your claim, the other party, the defense lawyer may use certain things like that to negate their responsibility for the accident. But no, typically they're on the hook for your insurance, for your ER bills.
Oh, good to know. Wendell, anything you want to add to that?
Well, generally they will not pay the ER bill anyway until the end of the case and you're ready to sign a release. But they're obligated, as Kate said, to pay that at some point, not immediately, but at some point. That's a responsibility that the adverse insurance company has to pay if their insured was at fault. But as far as them saying, well, you didn't have your seatbelt on, so we all pay this bill or that bill, the answer is no.
Okay. All right. Wendell Horn, Kate Kerbo, both from Reynolds, Horn, and Savant right here in Macon. And of course, the name of the show is Law Call. We are answering your automobile insurance questions. I'm Morgan Dukes, and I'll be right back with more right here on Law Call. If you would like to have a free consultation, or if you have further questions for Wendell Horn or Kate Kerbo, feel free to reach them right here in Macon at Reynolds, Horn, and Savant. The telephone number is 478-405-0300. You can find them on the web at www.reynoldsinjurylaw.com. And don't forget to follow Reynolds, Horn, and Savant on Facebook. I'm so glad that you both are with me tonight, because we are really getting down to the nitty-gritty of understanding your automobile insurance. Our next question comes from Pamela, who is a recently divorced mother with 2 young kids. And she wants to know, what amount of coverage should I sign up for with a new automobile insurance policy on an older car? New policy, older car. So, Kate, what do you think she should do in this case?
A lot of people just default to, I want full coverage on my car. But, what we've been hammering on this whole episode is uninsured motorist coverage. And, on an older car, you don't need full coverage. You don't need comprehensive. You don't need collision because the car's not worth that much. And with 2 young children, you want more uninsured motorist coverage and more liability coverage. In the event that something happens, you want to be able to cover their medical bills. I see this a lot too. I want to point out, especially living in Georgia, if you live out in a rural area, if you just have collision on your car, that typically and usually will not cover you hitting a deer. You want to have comprehensive collision in that scenario. So I always like to tell people that when they're looking at their car insurance. But on an older car with 2 small children, I would certainly recommend, getting the most uninsured motorist coverage and liability coverage that you can afford.
Okay, well, that's good advice. Good advice.
Absolutely.
All right. All right, Wendell, I have a question for you. This one comes from Charlie, and it's actually a question that I think a lot of us have experienced. I know somebody who's had to deal with this very same matter. Charlie's question goes a little like this. The police report from my wreck has lots of wrong information. Can I dispute it with the sheriff's office or just wait until I talk to the insurance adjuster? What if they don't believe me? I actually know somebody who had to deal with a case like this. All of the information was incorrect.
And we see that all the time. I mean, police officers are at the scene. There's 1,001 things going on. It's oftentimes very easy to unintentionally get something incorrect on the ACTS report. And you can dispute it with the police or the sheriff's department. But I think it's more advisable that once you get that report and you see that there's some things that are incorrect, probably go talk to a lawyer. If it's unimportant things that don't really have to do with who was responsible for the wreck, you may not even want to bother with that. But if it's important information that has to do with fault or other information on the report that could come back and be hurtful later, then your lawyer may say, why don't you let me or you go back to the sheriff's department, talk to the police officer, just point those things back out. And usually they're more than happy to sit down and listen to you and decide on their own what to do. But I would let that call be made by a lawyer, because we see people come in and they're disputing some speed limit sign or something that has nothing to do with who was at fault in this wreck. And if it hadn't got anything to do with who's at fault or other very critical information, you just let it ride. It's not a big deal. It'll come out down the road at a later time.
Okay. All right. Kate, anything you want to add to that?
No, this is something that we deal with all the time, and Wendell has shown me how to do since I first started practicing with the firm. You just, it's easier to have a lawyer get a supplemental report filed for you. And then that becomes part of the original report, and they will use that as they represent you through the case.
Well, okay. All right. That's good to know too. Let me ask this question. How often do you all use security footage in solving a case, or at least as a part of a case, or maybe some type of footage at all?
Pretty often. The tricky thing about that is that most of the time, in order to obtain security footage, the case has to be in suit. You have to be be able to subpoena that footage or request that footage and have a right to it. Most of the time, places don't just turn it over. Like on a premises case, if you need security footage from a slip and fall in a Walmart, you have to be in suit in a lawsuit to get that.
I see. So it's not a matter of a simple request. They just are not going to be that cooperative with you.
No.
And it can be very important because seeing it happen is very vivid, and generally speaking, it's going to help the injured party a lot more than it hurts. So, a lot of businesses have recorders outside of their establishment that record the road or the parking lot. So it's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Wendell Horn, Kate Curbo, thank you all for being with us tonight. Understanding an insurance company. Wow, you guys have really opened our eyes a lot, especially for those who are getting ready for summer travel. So until next time, I'm Morgan Dukes, and on behalf of all of us here at LawCall, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.